Welcome to the Prosper Group Week in Review podcast. Each week, we take a look at what is happening in digital advocacy and politics with a right of center focus. I'm Dan Huber with Caroline Alexander, and we're here for you. Let's get started. Caroline, we started something a couple weeks ago. Can you tell me a little bit more about our digital action item?
Yeah, so our digital action item is something that we wanted to get started for you all. And that's just one thing that we set for a weekly goal, something for you all to work on, to think about, and try to achieve until our next meeting, until we have a new digital action item. But this just is something to help you to keep improving on your digital campaign, something easy to work on that we love to help you out with. Last week's was to help expand your house file, whether that be through a social post or ads. We always think that's very important, and Prosper Group really specializes in growing that because we just understand how important it is. That's your base on everything. And so at the end of this week's podcast, we'll give you a new digital action item to reveal. So look forward to that. Dan, what's new this week?
Yeah, well, let's start with we've been sharing the AM rundown provided by Social Listening from the Prosper Group, and we'll look at what we've been following there. There's a few things that we're paying attention to right now. So over the last week or so, we've really started looking at the Supreme Court, and there's two main drivers for that. The first is last Friday, the court overturned a California prohibition on holding small religious gatherings, which was seen as kind of a big deal. It brings in the current situation with COVID, religious rights, and there was some controversy there, and there really wasn't a whole lot of explanation coming out of the court. So that was kind of interesting. And the other big piece that's related to the Supreme Court right now is that Democrats have introduced court packing legislation to expand the Supreme Court from 9 to 13. And that's just occurred within the last day or two. So a couple big ticks in the conversation related to the Supreme Court there that we're paying attention to. We're also looking at police and gun control specifically, and keeping an eye on mental health. There's been significant things going on in the news recently between shootings that have occurred, as well as the trials related to police shootings and a new police shooting, and a lot of tragedy that's going on. And so that's something we're paying attention to, also as the administration and the left pushes for gun control. Another thing we started looking at just in the last couple of days is earmarks. So, over the last several years, the GOP basically had a ban on earmarks as they were, really in the driving seat in Congress for a while. And that's changing a little bit. So the GOP in the next coming week, specifically on the Senate side, is starting to discuss how they're going to continue or not continue earmark bans in the coming weeks and the coming years. We're still watching the vaccine. Obviously, on Tuesday, the CDC and the FDA talked about putting a pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the one-shot vaccine. So saw a lot of conversation related to that. And obviously, the vaccination is a big thing in general right now. And, continuing to keep an eye on what's going on at the border, but that's really leveled out over the past week or so. But it's something that's probably going to stick and be around for a little while. As I mentioned, the AM rundowns provided by Social Listening from the Prosper Group. We send out an update daily throughout the week. Podcast listeners can sign up by going to prospergroupcorp.com/AM rundown. And we'll include a link to that in the podcast notes with the podcast. If anyone's interested, we're working on updates all the time to the AM rundown to make it more valuable and more useful to our subscribers. So let us know if you have any suggestions on how to make it better. Certainly willing to hear those and making updates regularly.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know. And we have a new blog post coming out about websites, don't we?
Yeah, we have a new post coming out later today. It's 8 must-haves for Republican campaign websites. we look a little bit back at the history of websites, before 1996 and the Dole Clinton campaign, their websites weren't really a thing in campaign politics, and how the trends have changed over the years a little bit. Really there was a big push into 2010 plus about building big websites. People had proprietary social networks, kind of got crazy, but a lot of that's changed with a focus on purpose and function. Now, we're kind of stepping back a little bit, somewhat smaller websites, focusing on what's really important in sites. So we look at that, and really, that's been a big thing. So would encourage you to check that out. We'll make sure and share that on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So look for those things. Well, with that, Caroline, I know we're getting ready to wrap things up for today and the week, but what is our digital action item for the coming week?
We thought it'd be good to go along with the website theme with the blog post coming out. So this week we want you all to really make sure and verify that your website is secure. This is something that's really important right now and has become a growing issue. So we want you to make sure that in your search bar, there's a little icon that's a lock button. So just make sure that's there, and also that there is an S at the end of the HTTPS on the site that makes sure it's secure. So that's our action item for the week.
Yeah, that's perfect. I know having a secure site is, it's important for SEO. I have a little bit of background there, but it's also important just for protecting the visitors to your website, people who donate, people who, subscribe to your email list. And we posted last week a PG Digital tip about that. So you can check that out if you have any questions. Anyhow, thank you, Caroline. Thank you to the listeners of the Prosper Group Week in Review podcast. If you like the show, please subscribe, rate us, share on social media. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Thank you, and have a great week.